Thank you for joining us on the Thursday edition of Journalist Hangout. I'm Ayodele Uzubakun. Today on the program, United States alert Nigeria that Al-Qaeda is penetrating Nigeria's northwest as federal government is about to take delivery of 12 fighter jets. And later on the show, additional petitions board seeks cancellation of NBA election. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju, while Jude Igbanoin and Adekunle Yusuf will join us via Skype. So if you're ready, let the hangout start now. Thank you for joining us. There seems to be fire on the mountain in Nigeria, and we really need to quench it. The United States of America has raised the alarm that insurgents from Al-Qaeda network are penetrating Nigeria and other West African countries. The commander of the U.S. Special Operations Command, Dagvin Anderson, gave the warning. A cheering aspect is that the federal government is about to take delivery of 12 fighter jets for effective prosecution of the war against insurgency. The chief of our staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, said the Super Tucano ordered from the U.S. will soon be delivered. But let's go to the first phase of this thing. When we started noticing the activities of the Boko Haram in 2009, I remember General Olusegun Obasanjo, the former president, warning that when the war on Libya, when Muammar Gaddafi was about to be apprehended and killed by the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and was saying the backlash of this might be that other African countries will be, he has his own guards, he has his own private army, integrates that time. They had a lot of ammunition. So as a fallout of the crisis in Libya, that we might be experiencing this kind of thing. So years after now, down the line, the way they import, they bring this into, they bring ammunition into Nigeria is very, very worrisome. Now, if you say the Al-Qaeda guys, they are penetrating African countries, and if you see the level at which the activities of Boko Haram in Nigeria in the last 3-4 months has been very, very... We thought after the devastation by the Chadian troop, by Idris Deby and his boys, that for some time they were going to go down, but it picked up rapidly and they are very, very active. They've been very active after that particular Lake Chad assaults.
Yeah, the truth is, there is Al-Qaeda and there is ISIS. ISIS came and seized the initiative from Al-Qaeda. ISIS is an offshoot of Al-Qaeda. Some of the people later came together to form ISIS were people with loyalty to Al-Qaeda. They just felt that they needed to take terrorism to a whole new level. And then with some of what they had gone through in Iraq, some of them had been detained, like the leader of ISIS, the one that the Americans murdered during this Trump administration. He was locked up in jail in Iraq, and he witnessed firsthand the dehumanization of a lot of those prisoners. And we made up his mind that it had to be avenged. That's the origin of ISIS. But in the case of Boko Haram, they got affiliated with ISIS, and of course, in August 2016, as a result of that affiliation, Abu Musab al-Banawi formed his own faction because he was recognized as the leader of Boko Haram. Not Shekau. So Shekau got angry. Abu Musab al-Banawi then had to, since Shekau did not recognize his leadership, Shekau decided to stand alone. Then Abu Musab al-Banawi decided to go his own way and decided to go and set up his own camp, his own territory in the Lake Chad area, the Tumbus. They call them the Tumbus. That's the islands of Lake Chad. That's where he stayed. But Al-Qaeda continue to exist as a terrorist group. So they now see Africa as the place to go because Al-Qaeda and ISIS have been routed in the Middle East, largely routed in the Middle East. The areas left for them are Libya, which is like a failed state now. There is no recognizable government that is in power, that is in charge.
Since the death of Saddam, it has
Yes.
never been peace.
Wide expanse of land outside of the capital, Tripoli,
Tripoli.
is in control of warlords and other people. So they are active in that country. The terrorist groups are active also in Mali, where the war is going on. And some of the weapons being used in the war
Parts.
find a way to be funneled into Nigeria. Then some too come through Libya. From Libya, they come into Niger Republic. From there, go into Chad, in N'Djamena, then come into Nigeria through the Lake Chad area. So Boko Haram continues to have access to NATO weapons that were abandoned, that were left with fighters by NATO, because NATO armed the rebels against Saddam Hussein, and those against Muammar Gaddafi. And with the war over and some of them not knowing what to do next, they are selling those weapons. Some of the weapons that the Nigerian army seized from Boko Haram, you see NATO reaching boldly on those weapons. And some of them are even of higher grade than the weapons at the disposal of our troops. So it's a big problem. Now, I see a kind of competition between two rival terrorist groups. ISIS now is expanding its area of influence in Nigeria because they are now spreading. Some of them have gone to the northwest, Zamfara, and parts of
Why? How come they find Nigeria habitable?
Because you do not. It seems that we do not have the capacity, given the way they have blossomed in the last few months or last 2 years. They seem to think that they can get away with so much here. I was listening to one of the governors of the Northwest saying that they will continue to negotiate with bandits. This is exactly what they want. You've negotiated with them, but they continue to kill people. They make so much money. With those monies, they can buy weapons from the black market, and they can continue to seize innocent people. So it looks like this is a place where they can get away with blue murder. They've been crushed in Iraq. We all witnessed how how they were crushed in Iraq with the support of Iran, with the support of Kurdish separatists, and then, of course, America funneling weapons and money. They were able to crush them, chase them out of the communities and towns that they occupied in Iraq. Now, if we are not careful, if we do not crush these people as soon as possible, we will have a big problem on our hands. I've said it repeatedly that some of the people killing our people, many of the people killing our people, are not Nigerians. We are seeing evidence now. We are seeing evidence. These people are coming in. If they can get away with killing our people, with making money here from criminality and all sorts, they will find this place habitable. It's just a normal thing. Yes. The borders, we don't man the borders. Borders are porous. So why would they come in?
Do I have Jude there or Adekunle Yusuf? Okay, we are yet to establish connection with these guys. And when you now look at it, it is, we have the immigration service. We have, agencies responsible for guarding our borders and everything. But especially up north, it's so porous.
And very extensive.
To bring hardwares and these things inside, it seems to be the easiest now. AK-47 is like nothing in the north now.
Well, any group of terrorists or bandits or just armed robbers or criminals that you arrest these days, you find they have access to AK-47. It's like we are approaching the level of South Africa, where people have such access to weapons that it has kind of made crime to be very high in that country. People have, they can buy weapons almost as easy as you can buy candy, in a store. So we are approaching a very dangerous situation. There is so there are so many weapons, illicit weapons in the hands of people in our country, and efforts must be made to get these weapons off these people's hands, because it is a bolster for crime. When people have weapons in their hands, they feel comfortable to carry out criminal activities. There was a video of bandits in the northwest that is trending. You see them with rocket-propelled grenades.
RPG.
RPG, you see them, they are flaunting it. And you know the damage that an RPG can do. So we have to find a way. Those borders, I was talking about the America-Mexico border, how America spends so much money and effort policing that border so that they can keep their communities safe and reduce the level of consumption of illicit drugs. And it's technology. It's technology. The Mexicans find it a lot difficult to use those illicit routes, entry routes into America, because of the use of ground penetrating radars that will enable you to spot people who try to crawl into America illegally. So there's no, and there are weapons too by which you can locate people even in the thick jungles. I talked about it yesterday. The truth is, the jungles we have in our country are not even, they are not as dense as what we have in Congo. You know? Because in that country, they export a lot of timber. So they have thick forests. The jungles that we have are not as dense as you have in Brazil, in the Amazon area. So we should be able to deal with what we have, the situation. We should be able to address the problem that we have. We should, by leveraging on technology, this is what can save us. And that's why if the Tucanos can come quickly, I'll be excited.
Adekunle Yusuf, I have Adekunle Yusuf joining us. Kunle, is this not worrisome if we have the presence of Al-Qaeda in the Northeast?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Al-Qaeda.
Is this not worrisome, the presence of Al-Qaeda? Go ahead, Adekunle Yusuf. Oh. So, we'll just try to perfect our connection with Adekunle Yusuf. And moving on now, we know that after some time that we have forces on ground, we have the Air Force. We're talking about this Super Tucano now, because we've been on this for 4 years. I remember when we signed these contracts. I remember when you told Nigerians that it's not something that they should expect so soon. And I remember that over time, now is the time now. So we're expecting those Super Tucanos. And
Yes.
Tell me how this can change the game for the Air Force.
Yeah, because it's tested and it's proven itself capable and reliable as a counter-insurgency aircraft. It's been used in Colombia, it's been used in Afghanistan, it's been used largely, in Southeast Asia since 1999, June 1999, when it was born, in inverted commas. So the truth is, it will help us tremendously because it has a lot of the modern features that makes flying and bombing experience pleasurable to fighter pilots. It has infrared capability. Of course, like most modern aircraft too, you can have missions at night with it and you enjoy doing it. And it has capability for reconnaissance work, which means that it is not just a fighter bomber. You can also use it for reconnaissance. You can use it to get intelligence about the enemy. And then it is light. It is light, so it can land on hard surface. For example, in the Northeast, you don't need an airfield or an airport before it can land. Once the surface is hard enough, it can land there. And of course, it can go many hours of bombing without needing to refuel. This is one good advantage of having the Tucano, because you can now, your bombing missions you can have extended bombing missions because it does not need to refuel. So it's something that is designed for this part of the world. And I remember speaking with the Chief of Air Staff. For me, as a lover of fighter jets, I wanted maybe something like the F-16, or the F-14 Tomcat. But the Chief of Air Staff told me that, yes, as good as those ones were, that they looked at something that is good for our kind of environment. And then they went for it. So in the end, when you look at how it's been used in some of these countries, you see that it is something meant for counter-insurgency missions, and something that is going to be useful for an environment like our own. And of course, its rockets are going to be very useful in dealing with those guys.
We'll take this break. When we come back, we'll discuss more. It's still Journalist Hangout. We'll be right back after this time out. All right, now, the 2020 election to usher in new leadership of the Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, has been concluded, but the center has refused to hold for the body. One of the defeated contestants for the NBA presidency, Dele Adesina, a senior advocate of Nigeria, SAN, is seeking cancellation of the election, won by Olumide Akpata, who became the 30th president of the association. In a petition, Adesina wants the board of trustees of the NBA to cancel the poll, alleging that it was marred by overvoting, disenfranchisement of some eligible voters, and non-compliance with the provisions of the NBA constitution. Nigerian Bar Association, Babajide, this is like the third time I'm going to be hearing complaint from Nigerian Bar Association in terms of the leadership election, and this is the first time that we're going to have them go online to go and vote for whoever they want. And this is the first time it's going to be like a direct thing between that involves all lawyers. Once you are how will I pay it? How will I say it? Once you pay your dues as a lawyer. So against all odds, Olumide Akpata, who is not an SAN, but a partner in one of this big law firms, Templars, actually emerged, and a lot of people are saying that this has upset what it used to be the norm. That, NBA, the senior advocate of Nigeria, from the time of Wole Adekunle to Aketi, down the line. So it has always been this thing for SAN exclusively, but then Olumide Akpata is coming from the back now, and he has upset that calculation.
Well, there's nothing wrong in even someone who just joined the bar winning an election. But what people want to see is transparency. Given the position that the NBA occupies in our country, the last thing you want to hear about is that an NBA election was characterized by disenfranchisement of voters and other irregularities. There's no way that can be justified. I heard that up till the night of Thursday, 13,000 out of the 29,000 registered to vote or eligible to vote had not voted. So a lot of the lawyers that I know, including even young lawyers, because this is not simply a contest between SANs and non-SANs, a lot of lawyers that I know, did not vote. I can mention names of some lawyers that I know who did not vote, and they feel very bad about it, you know. So the election should not, the NBA election should not be one that the bar cannot hold up as a very good example to the Nigerian nation. We are struggling with our electoral processes in our country. I know that all electoral processes are largely not perfect, but a situation in which people come out of an election, I've not seen anyone as acrimonious as this, especially given that many people could not vote. So if the elections were conducted in contravention of some provisions of the NBA Constitution, then it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. NBA has been going steadily down in terms of what we knew it to be. Leadership. You can imagine a former NBA president, Mama Priscilla Akuyɛ, not being able to vote in this election. So how do you explain that? A former president of the bar could not vote. And there are many people like that, even prominent people. So this is the problem. I hope that lawyers will be able to call in on this program and explain what happened. Because we are journalists, we are on the outside. And there's a limit to which we can talk about issues that are clearly in the purview of these lawyers. But from what we see,
it was
there are problems.
It was keenly contested, and it was narrowed down to the screening committee led by Taiwo narrowed it down to just 3 individuals. And at the end of the day, and we have this, and I don't know how. This is the first time I'll be hearing of full e-voting. That and this is what we are clamoring for in Nigeria, and. So for less than 30,000 lawyers, they can't come together to arrange a credible election, and we are saying INEC, let's go electronics in 2023.
It's rather unfortunate that if this micro number of people cannot put this together, considering their level of learnedness, as they always say it,
they call themselves
nobility.
Exactly, cannot put this together, then there is a big problem. You remember that very often some politicians have argued that we have not got to the point of deploying such sophistication in our elections. Remember Maurice, who came up with this idea of virtual voting, electronic voting, remote voting, and that this is the only foolproof way. So because of coronavirus, the coronavirus forced this on the lawyers, and they decided to see if they could set the pace. Unfortunately, these issues have arisen. Now, let's also be fair, that since this is the first time this is happening, then you would expect that there will be issues. Even if the election was free and fair, first, it depends on how the losers can take losses. So they will challenge them. But I expect that by and by, we will be able to filter these things and then be able, because when you look at the gap, the supposed gap between Akpata and the second place person.
And the person that is even is the person that is the third position.
Exactly.
That is even pushing.
You understand? So you see the gap. So even if we have to, cross the T's and dot the I's, okay, so to what level will the numbers come or reduce to, or what gaps will be closed? So the point is, this is the first time this is happening. I think it will take some time to get, they need some time to get used to it. But I think that after everything, they'll probably look at it and see how they go on from here. Because if they don't get this right, then it seems that the foundation of every decision that this executive will be, taking will be very, very faulty. And that has greater implications for the rest of us.
Okay, I think we have a legal practitioner, that is Oluwasegun Ayola, is on phone now from Lagos. Thank you for joining us, Shugo. Hello, thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
Yes, please tell us what happened at the last election to choose a National Working Committee for the Nigerian Bar Association.
Okay. From my own perspective as an active member of the MBA in Lagos, particularly, I would say that whatever we are discussing, in as much as it might result to academic exercise, but it is very, very important that we state some things very clearly. Now, I don't know if you follow the emergence of the current president. It is well known that the election that brought him to power were also marred with several irregularities. And coming from that angle, you would expect that when he's about to conduct an election that will lead to his own succession, all those allegations ought to be well plugged. All those loopholes that actually marred his own emergence ought to have been worked on. Now, as a person who has also tried his best to follow the process carefully from beginning to the end, one of the major things that cannot be denied is that the level of voter education in this particular election was terribly poor. Now, one major fact is that the company who ought to handle the voting portal, the IT company, and all those kind of information were things that we were privy to at the last election. For this particular election, there was no information as to the company handling IT, even information as regards the verification processes that the voters should be aware of on time. It was well unknown. Although at the point, the NDA actually created a demo verification process. And the impression they even gave to us was that the election was going to be conducted on the MBA portal. Alas, on the election day itself, we discovered that elections were not even going to be conducted on the MBA portal. So it was more like a misrepresentation. Now, on the election day itself, you find out that a lot of people who were supposed to vote were supposed to get some links from a certain company delivered into their mailboxes. I was able to vote, but I had a whole lot of persons who I know as legal practitioners who were unable to vote, and they concluded the verification process before that day. In short, one other thing that I even found irregular was the fact that the list of accredited voters was delivered like 5 hours to the election itself. The effect of that was that it gave none of the branch members, that is the 125 branches in Lagos, it didn't give them the opportunity to actually look into the list to even see whether there were illegal names on that list, whether there were deductions. There was no opportunity to actually verify the validity of the number of voters. So how would you say you are doing an election and you are releasing the list of accredited voters a few hours to the election? Another observation was that if you look carefully at the list of voters, you see a branch, in short, an unknown branch to the NBA Constitution, diaspora. There's nothing like diaspora branch. It's unknown to the NBA Constitution. And you find out that a lot of persons were found to belong to the diaspora branch. So how would you verify whether those persons are actually legal practitioners? Because according to the Constitution, the voters are supposed to be members who belong to certain branches. Am I right?
Yeah. Yes. Go on.
So those are some of the issues. How do you create an unknown branch as against the Constitution that governs a body? Now, aside that, even the final voters list is according to a particular portion of the Constitution was meant to have been released like 28 days before the election. So all those things, in fact, they were not complied with. How do you reconcile that with a situation whereby you are giving list of eligible voters 5 hours to the election? That means the electoral body itself did not even give itself the opportunity to amend the possible mistakes it could have made. So it was a very, very porous process. And aside that, even the conduct of candidates for the election were not even well monitored. I don't know how a body who says it's an ECMDA will draw up guidelines that, okay, candidates don't do this, don't do that, and you will see that it is the exact opposite of the things contained in the guidelines that were being perpetrated. In short, as far as I'm concerned, the ECMBA just lacked courage and boldness to even sanction some of the candidates who went about breaching the guidelines. It was just a mockery. At a point, after several breaches of some notable candidates, people probably gave up that nothing can happen to this person. So the election was just, in short, it was filled with so much.
Thank you for your contribution. As you know, people will say even lawyers are very quick to criticize Professor Mahmoud. INEC, take them to the cleaners. It's very easy. 30,000 lawyers could not come together to produce a free and fair election. Now we have Jude Igbanoy. Jude Igbanoy is joining us. Jude is a lawyer, is a journalist, and Jude has been monitoring the affairs of the Nigerian Bar Association for years. Jude, what do you make of this election? I just read your piece, an outer barman becoming the NBA president.
I hope you can hear me, but I can't hear you very well. But I will give you my thoughts on the just concluded NBA national election. Now, I don't think there is time enough on this forum to analyze what transpired in the election. Okay. Well, the election has come and gone, and we only have lessons now to learn from what transpired in the election. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. We can hear you. Jude.
Yeah, the truth of the matter is that a lot happened. Negative things happened in the election, and we must learn from that. One of the biggest problems we had, I for one, people don't like my views because I don't want my views to even be popular. The truth of the matter is that we could have gotten it right if we made up our minds to do. For instance, some of the challenges were too much for the Electoral Committee of Nigeria Bar Association to handle. One of those challenges was the server, the IT consultant that handled the election. We come up with a transparent process. The chairman of the committee, Tawu SAN, had been complaining that he didn't have a hand in the choice of the IT consultant that handled server. But all those are bygones. But I must point out something. Some of the shortcomings that some of us lawyers made in voting was that the list of accredited voters came out an hour before the election. That alone is bad. I'm not commenting on whether the election was credible or not. The fact that the list of credible of accredited voters came out an hour before the election was, in my view, bad enough. It wasn't whether it was deliberate or not is a completely different thing. But I must say something. Winners have emerged. In my view, there are no losers because the Nigerian Bar Association is one. The process was not perfect. There were challenges. There were problems. There were systemic errors. There were technical errors. There were human errors. Yes, but a winner has emerged. In my view, because of that, every Nigerian lawyer is a winner. Both those who didn't get to the office and those who got to the office were all winners. Because we don't want the Nigerian Bar Association to scatter, to be messed up, because we only have one bar in Nigeria, which is Nigerian Bar Association. We want unity, but the process that brought the present president, we must criticize it. That is the only way we can learn looking forward. We cannot, like Israelites, go back to Israel. The situation we had before now was the delegate system, where voters were picked by branch chairmen in a delegate election to converge in one place, and the chairman of each branch would determine who will vote from that branch. It was riddled with corruption. The chairman will pick the people he likes. It was highly monetized. A candidate will come, give the chairman millions, and say, look, get people that will vote for me. The chairman will handpick because it was his own prerogative. We have gone past that. Now we are in the era of universal suffrage, where every lawyer, whether you are 1 year, whether you are 2 days old at the bar, whether you are 1 year or 20, 30 years at the bar, you are entitled to vote, provided you pay your practicing fees and your branch dues.
Okay, just hold your thought there. I also have a Lagos-based lawyer joining us now. Thank you for joining us. His name is Olabiyi Aki. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, good afternoon, sir. I'm Richard.
Yes, what's your reaction to the last election of the Nigerian Bar Association?
It was a very funny one. We all know how it went, and we all know that it was not the true reflection of the voters' will.
It was a funny one.
Exactly, it was. Right from the period pre the election, it was obvious that the electoral process was filled with different anomalies. Okay, can you hear me very well, please?
Yes.
Okay, let me start from the earliest time of the process. There were 3 lists released of voters. The very first list was released, and it was just before the validation was asked. Before you asked the legal practitioners to do their validation on the NBA portal. And after which second list was released. It was when the second list was released that we found out that there were persons like opening balance and closing balance on the list. Eventually, you asked people to do their validation, which we all did. And then a third list was released, and it was called the final list. So the list rectified all the problems that were noticed on the second list, while some persons that were not there at first, perhaps the other issues were included, and we believe that was the final list. On the day of election, another list came out, and it was called the accreditation list, and we are confused. How come there's an accreditation list after a final list, which is the third list? And eventually, on the accreditation list, several persons that made list 1, 2, 3, their names were not there. They were not able to vote, did not get a link. So that already raised doubt in our minds.
You could not get a link to vote.
Is that what, sir?
You could not get a link to vote.
I said several persons. I actually voted.
Okay.
I actually voted, but I know a lot of people that actually could not vote. And eventually, when the whole process was going on, I must confess to you, we cannot actually say maybe it was the lawyers that were voting or it was a programmed coup. So it was a very funny one, depending on the side of the coin you are sitting on or the side of the angle that you are viewing the process from.
Thank you, Aki Olabi. Thank you, a legal practitioner there. They've raised germane issues because when you look at the process that led to the election proper, you will see that they had fundamental flaws. Now, Jude said something. Jude said before, it was just the NBA chairman, let's say Ikeja branch, they will just nominate some delegates. And those delegates are the ones that will go for their convention to vote. That reminds me of the political direct and indirect primaries. Now, it has been changed to direct primaries now, but it's coming at another cost. That if the voting was not even done on the portal of the Nigerian Bar Association, this will be raising so many...
which should have been what they should have done. But then, even if it was not going to be done on the portal of the Nigerian Bar Association, that may not be a very serious issue if that is not something that is provided for in the Constitution anyway, because they are used to the long hand, the proper delegate system and all of that. Now, this idea they came up with, forced on them by the coronavirus, probably was something that had been in discussion for a very long time.
Online voting.
Yes, for a very long time. But then they wouldn't have, you understand. So they had to do this. Now, the funny thing is, Jude has raised a fundamental point here, and that is that, look, we can't go back to that delegate system. We have created a system now, even though it is flawed, but we have created a system now that allows everybody who is a registered lawyer that has a Supreme Court number to go ahead and cast the ballot by whatever means it is. Now we have a means of verifying the voters, who they are, whether the right people have voted. Now, with the problems that have arisen from this, what we need to do now is to carry out a verification process that determines who voted, who are those who voted, who did not vote. You know the number of people that were accredited to vote. So you can now verify the process. You may not outrightly have to cancel this election anyway, but the point is you need to verify the votes.
Babajide, on a final note, it's so disappointing. It's so disappointing and so discouraging that a very, very strong body like the Nigerian Bar Association, they're having their foundation called into question with this kind of election. If you can yab the president, talk up to the National Assembly, and do so many things, and just within their own cocoon, they cannot get it right.
Oh, when it comes to promoting good governance and democracy in our country, the NBA by tradition is in the forefront. And if their processes show anti-democratic tendencies, then it's a massive shame. You can have as your goal the need to let everyone who is a qualified lawyer, registered lawyer, be part of the process. But if more than 4,000 people are said to have not been allowed to vote, or that people did not exist, or you came in the middle of the game, you gave an opportunity for so-called diaspora voters.
That's not recognized
that the Constitution does not recognize as members. Then at the end of the day, the question will be, what did you achieve at the end of the day? If at the end of the day you didn't achieve your aim of making everyone happy, everyone cannot see that this has been a transparent process, then something is wrong.
Okay,
how did the idea of the diaspora voters come in? Are they members of any recognizable branch of the NBA? But don't forget, even the last election, it got to court, but the case was not decided until Usoro left the service. Yes. So even if these people, that's why he said at the beginning that this may be an academic exercise. Even if they go to court now, it's just 2 years that he has. They may not resolve the matter before it ends.
Jude Ubanoy, lawyer and journalist from This Day newspaper, Adekunle Yusuf, it was very difficult connecting you. Thank you so much. And the lawyers that spoke with us, and Professor Ajizogo. Thank you so much
thank you for
being part of this edition. And the maestro himself, BKO, Babajide Kolade Otoju. And that's our offering today. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program. And also watch Journalist Hangout on our platform showing on the screen. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I'm Ayodele Zubakun. Bye for now, and urging you to stay safe.